I'm Rimma Boshernitsan, the founder and CEO of Dialogue. Welcome to 10 by 20, a series of 10 questions discussed in 20-minute dialogues with local and international leaders doing visionary work at the intersection of people, technology, and society. Welcome back to 10 by 20. I'm thrilled to introduce you to today's guest, Pablo Lazo. Pablo is the Director for Urban Development and Accessibility at the World Resource Institute in Mexico. His professional experience ranges from city planning, urban resilience, and architecture. And I could say personally that he knows a lot about placemaking as well. Welcome, Pablo.
Thank you, Rimma. Nice to be back and talking to you.
I know, good to see you. And Happy New Year, of course. So we always start off these things, I know, we always start off the 10 by 20s with a little bit about sort of your background and childhood and how did all of this kind of come about, your interest in urban planning and development and architecture and sort of the way that it all came together for you as a person. And so I'm just curious, like what elements of your childhood do you think have influenced what you do now?
Well, I suppose I could start, first of all, by saying that my dad was an architect, and I would imagine that got a lot to do with influence how I look at things when I started to grow up and became more conscious about my surrounding environment. Mm-hmm. I remember very early days in my childhood when he would take us, me and my brother, camping on the weekends nearby Mexico City, where I was born. And he always was attentive to tell us things about where we were going in terms of if it was going to be a lake nearby site, or if it was going to be to the mountains, or if we were heading with it to a tropical forest. So in a way, I suppose that all those stories that he would tell us on the road to where we're heading kind of shaped my interest on my attraction to nature, and at the same time to do things with the place that I was exploring. So it's a funny kind of definition of an architect, but when you would go as a kid to a campsite and you mm-hmm. wanted to make a fire or put your your campsite in some way or another, you were performing as an architect, even if at the very early stage. And I suppose that kind of grow inside me and influence my work and my future profession as an architect, and as a person that explored the relationship between city and the place that I live and the space that I live and nature.
That's beautiful. It's amazing how like the little things that we experience when we're little influence us so much as we grow up.
Absolutely.
I find it continuously like impressive, just with my daughter too, like the things that she picks up on, I would never even have thought of. It's just an interesting kind of opportunity for us to impact our children in a positive way. So what would you say, is a big question that you're answering through your work? One of this, maybe some challenge that you're experiencing too, that you've found some creative solution for.
Well, it's funny the way you place the question, because for me, the evolution of this attraction to architecture and to the urban environment and nature, which seems to be opposites, but they're not opposites, and that's precisely the whole kind of question that I ask myself over and over, and through my career development, I reshape that same question. How can we coexist between cities and where we live with all the services and all the commodities and all the facilities, mm-hmm. and nature, and mm-hmm. trying to make the best equilibrium between both? I think that's mm-hmm. where it would reside my ultimate goal of the work and the type of research that I'm trying to do, not only at the WRI recently, but also in my urban design and, as you mentioned, placemaking design of my past experience.
Yeah. Are there projects that you're working on right now that sort of that you're most excited about in this? I mean, imagine they're in a bit of a different realm, but I'm curious, you're working globally right now in terms just based in Mexico, right?
That's right. And yes, we have some, I have really the privilege of working in projects that were in the past really amazing the way they were put together. Probably the most clear example was when I was still in London, the what is now the Olympic Park and where the London 2012 Olympics were held. It was just a dump site of East London, and nobody wanted to go there. Nobody cared about the River Lee going down through East London, and just that transformation that occurred across probably over 7 years, and the decontamination and the creation of a new public realm, and talking to the communities. I think that was an amazing experience. And now in Mexico, I have been, I've been working with kids a lot, with children and people between 5 to 12-year-old, and building with them agendas to plan cities, include them in the perspective of what a city needs, what their area or their community or their borough needs in terms of facilities in the public space, how the streets should be designed so that they feel secure and safe when they go to school. And I think that project that has been going on for about 5 years now, it is one that I truly appreciate, the way that it has enriched me, because it opens a whole new sets of agendas of design, perceptions, and interactions that are really powerful. And I think they still have a lot to say in terms of how we should plan cities.
Definitely agree with you. And I also think engaging kids at this age is such a wonderful time for them, especially the 5, 6, 7-year-olds, where they're still, their imaginations they don't yet have full awareness of their needs fully, but they have such amazing imagination. So I'm also curious, have there been any moments of aha for you that you're like, wow, I'm not only are you impressed with how they're thinking, but what they've come up with as a potential need and as they're seeing it in the future was just very surprising to you?
I think. Well, there have been many situations and many occasions in workshops would they just blow your mind, or from my colleagues when they say something completely true and very open and very direct, and it's so evident that you don't need kind of a political I don't know if I can say bullshit and things like that to support an idea. They just being open said, well, here we need to plant more trees. So but over the last 12 years I had 2 experiences that really make a huge mark on the way I'm shaping the project going forward. The first one is a bunch of kids, most of them girls, from a school in Monterrey, in a city north of in Mexico. They were doing an exercise in the workshop about what they needed to do to make their streets safer. And this bunch of 5 or 6 girls came to the table and said, look, we just need to be better prepared for the sun, because we heard about climate change, and that means temperatures are going to rise and we need more shade. And instead of start thinking on structures, and they have this kind of imagery around so they can think with the visuals that we put in the space around them. But her immediate reaction was, well, we just need to plant more trees. We really need this city to become a green city. And I know that concept, we have heard it many times in many realms, but that 5 and 6-year-old kids were just saying, we just need to plant more trees. And 9 months later at the COP26, the agreement between countries was, we need to stop deforestation and plant more trees. It just really blew my mind. I was like, wow, they got it, and they still have the whole life ahead, right?
Yeah.
So that was one moment. And the second moment is, I think we do not realize how harmful are cars to the perception in their world, in their probably 120-meter height. Kids generally are at that age. How they see cars moving around close by. So one kid on another workshop came to me and said, "Look, we just need really a safe space for the cars, so I can play around with my ball or with my friends." And that is something also so fundamentally clear in their perception and in their assertiveness that it, to me, is like, why the hell there are no policies and there are no plans for makes sidewalks wider and makes streets more comprehensive about those type of needs for kids. So those are two moments that in the last 12 months, it was like, wow, these kids already have that chip in their head. And that makes me very optimistic about what we're going to see in the future in terms of city planning.
I know we talked a little bit about sort of the relationship between, cities and people and nature, but I'm curious, is there any particular like way that you see human connection shaping your work outside of the obvious, that cities are for people and we're sort of designing around them? Is there anything else that you can use as a consideration, or that you might frame in this sort of human connection lens?
Well, I suppose I've been interested for quite a while now in this process of restoring entropy in the things that people do, and it doesn't matter what you do in your life and what's your ambition or your activity, but if you try to restore entropy with what you do, I think it's I would not say it's a high purpose, but it's a purpose on its own that it's strong enough to deliver something amazing. So for example, if I have a new potential client or a potential collaborator, I try to make that connection beyond the professional relationship. So I try to understand, what it is that they want to get out of this relationship, so I can try to distill the nuts at the very essence of this thing and make it clear, put it in front of them, in front of me at the same time, and that space in between will give us this what I probably naively called entropical moment to connect and then create something.
Yeah, and when do you say entropy, can you define it as how you mean it?
Well, entropy is the way I mean it and I understand it is when you establish this invisible energy and relationship between one thing and another, or one living being and another. So this entropy is when you connect and you understand the very nature of their need, or the very nature of why they are where they are at that moment. And grasping that energy and making that connection is a very powerful argument to then explore narratives and build something together, or come to an agreement, or have a conversation.
Yeah, no, I love that. I never thought about it from that space, but it totally makes sense. Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And I know we talked a little bit about some of the projects that you've done, very, very high level, but are there any specific ones, or in general, from the work that you're doing specifically, maybe through the World Resources Institute, have you seen specific shifts? So have you guys been, creating metrics or as part of that work? And what are some of the more exciting things that you're proud of out of the last 5 years that you said you've been there?
No, it's been only a couple of years with the institute, but the two things that I think are shifting, and they have shifted quite dramatically, probably, or have accelerated because of the COVID pandemic of the last 18 months or so. The first one has got to do with more looking at urban questions from social perspective rather than an environmental perspective only, which was the origin of the World Resource Institute back in the 80s. So it was originally an organization looking at environmental science and environmental resources research. And over the last 18 months, there has been a shift and an awareness that if you not bringing into your agenda these notions of equity, not only gender, but economic equity and equity as a big picture, social equity, you are going to miss the boat of the potential shift that could occur with all the climate change, change of perception the world is experimenting at the moment. And the other one that I've seen it has started to make a shift, and it will continue to create an impact. And this is going to be quite interesting to you to hear, is that more and more I'm seeing that any kind of urban planning exercises that occur with cities try to embed a cultural or an arts lens into this discussion and the conversation. And the evidence we start to gather seems to indicate that if you start bringing narratives that are, by cultural elements, I mean documentaries or movies, or simply other types of conversations like the ones you have created with this 20 by 20, start to open different ways of people react to the same problems that you have faced before, but now because they're a different platform, they could become more open, or they could react differently. And we will see more of that in the coming years across the world in different cities and different programs, because they have seen the perception of wow, this documentary start to make the trip. And probably the most evident is the movie Don't Look Up has already started to create this awareness of a thing that is very, very the essence of the problem of climate change, right?
Yeah. I just saw it as well. It was very long, but it was very funny.
Yeah.
So are you ready for our rapid fire?
I am ready.
Okay,
as ready as I can be. Sure.
So when do you feel most connected to others?
I suppose at a rave party.
At a rave party?
Yeah.
Ooh. When and where are you happiest?
Two moments. When I finished the Boston Marathon in 1997 and I broke my personal record, and when I gave birth at home to my second kid in the bathroom with my wife.
Oh my gosh, amazing! That's amazing. What intersection of I can imagine. What intersection of disciplines are you currently most fascinated by?
I am really, really interested in this kind of what it's called machine learning and chemistry, and the whole thing that, chemistry is using machine learning to find like vaccines at a much faster pace than it has ever been before. So I'm really, really interested in that. Although I don't understand it, but I'm really interested.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. What's the one thing that you wish to pass down to the next generation?
Well, I suppose have an awareness of entropy earlier in your life is much. It will make your life much better.
Yeah. And what is your biggest regret?
A lot of people have asked me that. I suppose
Really?
the biggest regret goes back to my running career, and it's dropping out of a New York City marathon when I was 40.
Oh, okay. Well, everything happens for a reason. So don't worry about it.
Indeed.
Well, thank you so much, Pablo. It's nice to have you. It's good to chat again.
Equally so, Rimma. It has been a pleasure, and thank you for the invitation, as always.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in to Dialogue's 10 by 20 interview series, where we ask 10 questions in 20 minutes to profile international leaders working at the intersection of people, technology, and society. That's all for today's episode. Like and subscribe below to get notified for our upcoming interviews. Follow us on Instagram at dialogue_co.